I stood in the kitchen of the house I built 30 years ago, my hands trembling around my coffee cup. My daughter Sarah burst through the door, her face twisted with anger, her husband Derek right behind her with that smirk I'd grown to hate. She screamed at me, waving a piece of paper in my face. "Pay the rent or get out, Dad. $800 now." Derek crossed his arms, looking pleased with himself. They had no idea this house, every nail and beam, belonged to me. They thought I was just some broke old man living in their property. I said nothing, but inside a plan was already forming. The weight of that morning settled on my chest as I sat alone in my bedroom later that day. Sarah's words still echoed in my ears, sharp as broken glass. $800. In the house I built with my own 2 hands, back in 1994. Let me tell you how I ended up here. How a man who served his country in Vietnam, who worked construction for 40 years, who raised a daughter he thought would always love him, ended up being treated like a tenant in his own home. 3 years ago, my world collapsed when Martha died. Breast cancer. Stage 4 by the time they caught it. We had 46 years together, and then one Tuesday morning in March she was gone. The hospice nurse told me she went peacefully, but I don't think there's any such thing as a peaceful death when you're leaving behind someone who can't imagine life without you. I was lost. The house felt enormous and empty. Every room held memories that cut like knives. The kitchen where Martha made her famous apple pie every Sunday. The living room where we danced to old records on Friday nights. The garden where she grew tomatoes and talked to her plants like they were children. Sarah came to the funeral with Derek. She held my hand during the service. She cried with me at the cemetery. And then a week later, she sat me down at my kitchen table and said, "Dad, you can't live here alone anymore. Come stay with us. Let us take care of you." I was 69 years old and felt like I was 100. I couldn't think straight. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't remember if I'd eaten breakfast or what day of the week it was. So I said yes. That's when Sarah started talking about the house. "Dad," she said, her voice so sweet and concerned, "we need to think about estate planning. You know, to avoid probate when the time comes. It'll save so much money on taxes and legal fees. Why don't we transfer the deed into my name now? That way everything will be simple and clean." I should have questioned it. I should have talked to a lawyer. But I was drowning in grief, and my daughter was throwing me a rope. So I went with her to the bank, signed some papers in front of a notary. Sarah handled everything, told me not to worry about the details. What Sarah didn't know, what I've never told her until recently, was that I never actually completed that transfer. The notary that day asked if I wanted to file the deed change with the county recorder's office right away. Sarah jumped in fast, said, "Don't bother with that today. I'll handle it myself later." And she winked at the notary like they shared some private joke. I was foggy from grief, but not that foggy. Something felt wrong. So 2 days later, I went back to the bank alone. I talked to the manager, a woman named Helen Rodriguez, who'd known me for 20 years. I asked her what would happen if the deed wasn't recorded. Helen looked at the paperwork and said, "Mr. Newton, this deed change isn't valid until it's filed with the county. Right now, you still own the house. You're still the legal owner." I asked her to keep the papers unrecorded. Something in my gut told me to wait. Helen agreed. Locked the documents in a safe deposit box I opened that day. I paid the yearly fee and went home. For the first few months after I moved in with Sarah and Derek, things were okay. Not great, but okay. Sarah cooked meals. Derek was polite. They gave me the downstairs guest room. I felt like maybe I'd made the right choice. But slowly, things changed. Sarah's voice got sharper when she talked to me. Derek stopped being polite and started being condescending. They began making comments about how much space I took up, how much food I ate, how loud I watched television. About 18 months in, Derek lost his job. He'd been a day trader playing the stock market with money he didn't have. He lost everything. $60,000 in credit card debt. A failed business venture. Maxed out lines of credit. Their savings gone. That's when they started looking at me differently. Not as family, as a burden, as something that cost money. 6 months ago, Sarah sat me down and said, "Dad, we need you to start contributing to household expenses. You're living here rent-free, while Derek and I struggle. It's only fair that you pay rent. $500 a month," she said. I had Social Security and a small Navy pension. I could afford it, but the principle burned in my gut. This was my house. My house. But I paid. I kept my mouth shut and paid. Then last month they raised it to $800. "Inflation," Dad, Sarah said. "Everything costs more now. Water, electricity, food. You have to pay your share." I still had savings. I could afford $800. But I was done. Done being treated like a burden. Done being insulted in my own home. Done watching Derek smirk at me across the dinner table, while my own daughter demanded money for the privilege of existing. I started documenting everything. Every cruel comment, every demand for money, every insult. I had a smartphone Martha had bought me before she died, and I learned how to use the voice recorder. I saved text messages. I made copies of their written demands for rent payments. Derek was the worst. He'd say things like, "You know, Newton, there comes a time when old people need to accept they're a burden on society. Maybe it's time to think about a nursing home. Let the professionals handle you." Sarah would laugh. My own daughter would laugh. I recorded it all. And then came that Tuesday morning, when Sarah screamed at me about the rent. When she waved that paper in my face demanding $800 or I'd be out on the street. When Derek stood there with his arms crossed, looking at me like I was garbage. After they left for work, I went to my room and pulled out the folder I'd hidden under my mattress. Inside was the original deed still showing me as the legal owner. Also inside was something else, a recent appraisal I'd secretly commissioned. The house was worth $720,000. I sat on my bed holding that folder and made a decision. I was going to sell the house. I was going to do it quickly. And I wasn't going to tell them until it was too late. I called an old friend, Frank Morrison. Frank and I served together in Vietnam. After the war, Frank went into real estate. He'd sold Martha and me 3 houses over the years, helped us buy this one back in '94. "Frank," I said when he answered, "I need your help, and I need you to keep it completely secret." We met at a coffee shop across town the next day. I showed him the deed, explained the situation. Frank's face went red with anger when I told him how they'd been treating me. "Newton," he said, "I'll help you. But you need to understand something. If Sarah finds out before we close, she could try to fight this. She could claim adverse possession or file an injunction. We need to move fast and keep this absolutely quiet." Frank made some calls right there at the coffee shop. Within 2 hours, he had a buyer interested, a developer named Mr. Patterson, who'd been looking for properties in our neighborhood. Patterson wanted to tear down the old house and build something new. Patterson's first offer was $680,000, all cash, close in 2 weeks. I countered with $700,000. Patterson agreed. We scheduled the signing for the following week at my bank, during what Sarah thought was my routine doctor's appointment. But first I had to pay them. I had to pay that $800 to buy myself time. So I did. I took the money from my emergency savings account and handed it to Sarah in an envelope. She didn't even say thank you, just took the money and walked away. That night, Derek suggested at dinner that they should explore conservatorship options for me. He said I was becoming forgetful and incapable of managing my own affairs. I realized then that the rent was just the beginning. They were planning something worse. They were planning to take everything. The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. I lived under the same roof as Sarah and Derek, ate meals with them, smiled when I needed to, all while knowing I was about to pull the rug out from under their world. Frank moved fast. The title search came back clean. Escrow opened. I signed papers at the bank while Sarah thought I was getting my annual physical. Helen Rodriguez witnessed every signature, stored every document in that same safe deposit box. Mr. Patterson was professional and quick. He wanted the property, no questions asked. $700,000, all cash, closing in 14 days. The paperwork spelled out that the house would be vacant within 30 days of closing. But I had a problem. I had belongings in that house. 40 years of memories. Photos of Martha, from when we first met. My military medals from Vietnam. Important documents. Things I couldn't leave behind. So I started moving them one box at a time. I'd tell Sarah and Derek I was going to the library or the Veterans Center, but instead I'd drive to a storage facility 15 miles away. I rented a unit under Frank's name to keep it secret. Every trip I'd take another box. Photo albums. Martha's jewelry. My father's pocket watch. The flag from Martha's funeral. It took me 8 days to move everything that mattered. Sarah and Derek never noticed. They were too busy arguing about money, about Derek's job search, about their debts. On day 10 of the sale process, I made a mistake. I didn't notice Derek following me. I drove to the storage unit like I had every day that week. I parked my old Ford truck, unlocked the unit, and moved 2 more boxes inside. Then I locked it up and drove home. What I didn't know was that Derek had been suspicious of my errands. He'd followed me in his car, stayed far enough back that I never saw him. He watched me unlock the storage unit. He wrote down the unit number. The next day, while I was at an actual doctor's appointment, Derek went back to that storage facility. He charmed the young kid working the desk, spun some story about being my son, and needing to check on his confused father's belongings. The kid, bless his heart, broke every rule, and gave Derek access. Derek broke into my unit. He saw the boxes, the photos, the medals, the furniture I'd moved, and he put it all together. That night they were waiting for me when I got home, both of them sitting at the kitchen table like judges at a trial. "Sit down, Dad," Sarah said. Her voice was cold hard. Saturday. Derek leaned forward. "Want to tell us why you've been moving your stuff to a storage unit? Planning on going somewhere?" I stayed calm. I'd known this moment might come. "That's my business," I said. Sarah's face flushed red. "Your business. Your business. You're living in our house, and you're plotting something behind our backs. What are you doing? Are you being scammed? Is someone taking advantage of you?" "Nobody's taking advantage of me," I said. Then Derek slammed his hand on the table. "Why are you sneaking around? What are you hiding?" I looked at my daughter, at this woman I'd held as a baby, taught to ride a bike, walked down the aisle at her wedding. This stranger, who now looked at me with such contempt. "I'm not telling you anything," I said. "But know this. Everything I'm doing with a clear mind and full understanding. Nobody is manipulating me. Nobody is scamming me. I'm making my own choices." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Fake tears, I could tell. She learned how to cry on command, sometime in the last 3 years. "How could you?" she whispered. "After everything we've done for you, taking you in, caring for you, and you're planning to abandon us, to steal our property." "Your property," I almost laughed. "Almost." Derek stood up. "We're calling Adult Protective Services tomorrow. You're clearly not competent to make decisions. You're exhibiting signs of dementia. We have a responsibility to protect you from yourself." "You can call whoever you want," I said. I stood up too, looked Derek right in the eyes. "But you won't find what you're looking for." I went to my room. They didn't follow, but I heard them arguing in the kitchen for hours. The next morning I woke up and tried to open my bedroom door. It wouldn't budge. There was a new lock on the outside. They'd locked me in. A note slid under the door. Derek's handwriting. "Until you explain what you're doing and sign over power of attorney, you're staying put. This is for your own good. We're protecting you from making terrible decisions." I was a prisoner, in my own house, in the room where Martha and I had slept for 25 years before she got sick and we moved to the downstairs bedroom. They kept me locked in there for 2 days. They slid food under the door 3 times a day. Like I was an animal, like I was nothing. But they made one mistake. They left me my phone. I called Frank immediately. He was furious. "Newton, I'm calling the police right now. This is kidnapping. This is false imprisonment." "No," I said. "Don't call the police. Not yet. How many more days until closing?" 3 days, Frank said. "But Newton, you can't stay locked in there." "I can and I will. Listen to me, Frank. If we call the police now, this becomes complicated. Sarah will claim she was protecting me. She'll claim I'm incompetent. It'll delay the sale, maybe kill it entirely. I just need 3 more days. Can the closing happen without me being there in person?" "We can do a mobile notary," Frank said. "I can bring everything to you." "Then do it. I'll get out of here when I'm ready." On the 3rd day of my imprisonment, I picked the lock. It wasn't hard. I'd learned lockpicking in the Navy back in '68 when I was stationed on a submarine, and sometimes you needed to get into places quickly. My fingers weren't as nimble as they used to be, but muscle memory is a powerful thing. The lock clicked open at 3 in the morning. The house was silent. I packed one small bag with clothes and my medications. I took my truck keys from where I'd hidden them in a heating vent, and I walked out of that house. Sarah heard me. She came running down the stairs in her bathrobe. Dad, where are you going? You can't just leave." I stopped at the front door, turned to look at her. "Watch me. We'll report you as a missing vulnerable adult," she screamed. "We'll tell them you're confused, that you're in danger. Do what you need to do, Sarah." "I'm doing what I need to do." I walked out, got in my truck, drove away. In my rearview mirror, I could see Sarah standing on the porch screaming at me. Derek appeared behind her phone, already in his hand. I didn't look back again. The closing happened the next day. Frank brought a mobile notary to the apartment he'd helped me rent 2 days before I escaped. I signed the final papers. Mr. Patterson's $700,000 moved into my account. After closing costs, agent fees, and the money I owed Helen for years of safe deposit box fees, I had $695,000. It was done. The house was sold. Sarah and Derek had no idea. I slept that night for the first time in 3 years without fear. My apartment was small, just 1 bedroom in a quiet complex near the Veterans Center. But it was mine. Nobody could lock me in. Nobody could demand rent. Nobody could make me feel small. For 1 week, I lived in peace. That week of peace was probably the best week I'd had since Martha died. I woke up when I wanted to. I ate what I wanted to. I watched television at whatever volume I chose. I sat on my little balcony and drank coffee and watched the sunrise without anybody making snide comments about how I was wasting electricity or taking up space. Frank called every day to check on me. He was worried about what would happen when Sarah found out. I told him not to worry. Whatever came, I'd handle it. On day 7, it came. I was making lunch when my phone rang. Sarah's name on the screen. I almost didn't answer, but I knew I had to face this eventually. "Hello, Sarah." The voice that came through the phone wasn't the cold, cruel voice I'd gotten used to. It was panicked, desperate, broken. Dad, please, you have to help us. We got a letter from a lawyer, they're evicting us. They say we have to be out in 30 days. I don't understand. The house is ours. How can they evict us from our own house? I took a breath, sat down at my small kitchen table. Sarah, it was never your house. Silence. Then what? What are you talking about? You transferred the deed to me 3 years ago. We did it at the bank. We started the process, I said. But it was never completed. The deed was never recorded with the county. The house remained in my name the entire time. More silence. I could hear her breathing fast and shallow, like she was hyperventilating. But that can't be. You're lying. You're confused. Derek, get on the phone. Dad's saying, the house isn't ours. I heard fumbling then, Derek's voice trying to sound authoritative but with an edge of panic. Newton, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you need to fix this right now. There's some mistake with the paperwork. You need to call these lawyers and explain that you're Sarah's father and you gave her the house. I sold the house, Derek. You what? I sold the house. 3 weeks ago. Closed last Tuesday. The new owner is exercising his right to vacant possession. You have 30 days to move out. Derek started yelling. Screaming, really. Calling me names I won't repeat. Threatening me with lawsuits, with criminal charges, with everything he could think of. I held the phone away from my ear until he ran out of breath. Then Sarah was back crying now. Real tears this time, I think. Dad, please. Please. We have nowhere to go. We have no money. Derek can't find work. We're drowning here. Please, you have to help us. I'm your daughter. I'm your only child. Mom would want you to help me. That last part almost broke me. Almost. But then I remembered Martha's last months. How Sarah visited once a week for 20 minutes. How she'd sit there, checking her phone, while Martha tried to tell her stories. How she'd make excuses to leave early. How Derek never came at all. Don't you dare bring your mother into this, I said, and my voice was hard as steel. Martha loved you, but she would be ashamed of how you've treated me. You told me to get out, Sarah. You demanded rent for a house you didn't own. You locked me in a bedroom like a prisoner. You threatened to have me declared incompetent. Now you face the consequences of your choices. But Dad will be homeless. You're 43 years old. You have a college degree. Derek can get a job. Any job. You'll figure it out like millions of Americans figure it out every day. Welcome to the real world, Sarah. I hung up. She called back immediately. I didn't answer. She called 17 more times that day. I turned off my phone. 2 days later, the court papers arrived. A process server found me at the Veterans Center, where I'd been volunteering. He handed me a thick envelope and walked away. Inside was a lawsuit. Sarah and Derek were suing me. The claims were absurd. Fraud, elder abuse, emotional distress. The lawsuit claimed I had tricked Sarah into believing she owned the house. It claimed I was mentally incompetent when I made the decision to sell. It claimed I had maliciously and intentionally caused emotional and financial harm to my own family. They were suing me for $2 million. I called Frank, who gave me the name of a lawyer, Patricia Brennan. She had an office downtown, came highly recommended, specialized in family law and elder abuse cases. I met with Patricia the next day. She was about 50 sharp eyes, no-nonsense attitude. She read through the lawsuit while I sat there, my hands shaking. Finally, she looked up. Mr. Newton, this is garbage. Pure garbage. But it's going to cost you money to fight it. How much? My retainer is $15,000. That'll cover the initial work. If this goes to trial, you're looking at potentially $50,000 to $100,000 in legal fees. I thought about my $695,000. About the life Martha and I had planned. The travel we'd dreamed of. The grandchildren we'd hoped to spoil. Grandchildren Sarah and Derek had decided not to have because they were too expensive. Do it, I said. Fight them. Patricia smiled grimly. Good. Because I hate people who abuse their elderly parents. I'm going to tear them apart. But that same day, something worse arrived. Another set of court papers. An emergency restraining order. Sarah and Derek had gone to a judge and claimed I was dangerous and mentally unstable. They'd testified under oath that I had threatened them and exhibited violent behavior. All lies. Complete lies. But the judge had granted a temporary restraining order. I couldn't contact Sarah. I couldn't go within 500 feet of the house. If I violated the order, I'd be arrested. Patricia was furious when I showed her. "They're building a narrative," she said. "They're setting you up to look incompetent and dangerous. They're going to use this to support their lawsuit." The next week was hell. Patricia filed our response to the lawsuit, but the damage was done. My name was in the court system. The restraining order made me look like a criminal. My blood pressure spiked. My doctor warned me that the stress was dangerous. I wasn't sleeping. I'd lost 12 pounds. Every time my phone rang, my heart would start racing. But I kept fighting. Because Martha didn't raise a quitter, and the Navy didn't train me to surrender. The lawsuit moved forward like a slow-motion nightmare. Discovery, they call it. The phase where both sides demand documents, ask questions, take depositions. It's designed to uncover the truth, but it felt more like torture. Patricia was relentless in defending me, but it cost money. Lots of money. After the initial retainer, she needed another $10,000, then another $15,000. The bills kept coming. $45,000 in legal fees over 4 months, and we hadn't even gotten to trial yet. My savings were shrinking. The money from the house sale, the money that was supposed to fund my retirement, my freedom, was being eaten up by lawyers fighting my own daughter. The stress was killing me. Literally. One Tuesday morning, I woke up with crushing chest pain. I managed to call 911 before I collapsed. The ambulance took me to County General. The doctor said I'd had a cardiac episode. Not quite a heart attack, but close. A warning. Mr. Newton, the cardiologist, said, standing by my hospital bed, "Your heart is under tremendous stress. Your blood pressure is dangerously high. If you don't find a way to reduce your stress levels, you're going to have a major cardiac event. And at your age, you might not survive it." I lay there hooked up to monitors 4 in my arm, and wondered if Sarah and Derek would be happy if I died, if that was their endgame all along. Wait for me to die. Claim I was incompetent when I sold the house. Try to overturn the sale. Get the money. Frank visited me in the hospital. He sat by my bed, looking older than his 74 years. "Newton," he said quietly, "maybe it's time to settle. Give them something. Enough to make them go away. Your health can't take this. If I give them money now," I said, "I'm admitting I did something wrong." "I didn't do anything wrong, Frank. I sold my own house. That's not a crime." "I know. But is being right worth dying for?" I didn't have an answer. While I was in the hospital, things got worse. My younger brother Carl called. Carl lives in Florida, and we haven't been close in years. Different lives, different paths. But he's still my brother. "Newton," he said, and his voice was cold. "I just got off the phone with Sarah. She told me what you did. How could you? Selling your house out from under her. Leaving your own daughter and son-in-law homeless. She said you're having mental problems. That you're not yourself." I tried to explain. Tried to tell him the truth. But Carl didn't want to hear it. "Sarah would never lie about something like this," he said. "She's worried about you. She loves you. And you've turned on her like a rabid dog. I'm ashamed to call you my brother." He hung up before I could respond. Then my sister Diane called. Diane lives in Oregon, works as a school teacher. She's always been the peacemaker in the family. "Newton, honey," she said. Sarah reached out to me. "She's so worried about you. She says you're making irrational decisions, that maybe you need help. Professional help." She mentioned that there are some nice facilities for people who are struggling with cognitive issues. "Diane, I don't have cognitive issues. I'm 72 years old, and I'm sharp as I've ever been. Sarah is lying to you." "But why would she lie? She's your daughter. She loves you." "Newton, I think you need to consider that maybe you're not seeing things clearly. Grief can do that. Losing Martha was traumatic. Maybe you're not recovered from that yet." I realized then that Sarah had been busy. She'd called every family member she could think of, spinning her web of lies, making me out to be a confused old man who needed to be protected from himself. Carl called again a week later. "Sarah and I have been talking," he said. "We think it's time to file for guardianship, to protect you, to make sure you don't make any more decisions that could hurt you. If you try that, Carl, I'll fight you with everything I have." "That's the grief and confusion talking," he said. "We're doing this because we love you." He filed the guardianship petition 2 days later. Now I was fighting on 2 fronts. the lawsuit, and a guardianship proceeding. If Carl and Sarah won the guardianship case, I'd lose everything. My autonomy, my freedom control over my own money. They'd put me in a nursing home and take over my finances. Everything I'd worked for, everything Martha and I had built, would be gone. Patricia brought in another lawyer, a specialist in guardianship defense. His name was Thomas Way, and his fees were $300 an hour. The bills kept mounting. I was at $70,000 in legal fees now. My savings were below $600,000, and we still hadn't gone to trial for the lawsuit. But the guardianship hearing was scheduled first. In 6 weeks, a judge would decide if I was competent to manage my own affairs. The court appointed an evaluator, a psychiatrist named Dr. Helen Marsh. She came to my apartment, spent 3 hours interviewing me, asking questions, testing my memory, my reasoning ability, my judgment. "Mr. Newton," she said, "at the end, you seem cognitively intact to me. Your memory is good. Your reasoning is sound. But I have to ask you about the circumstances that led to this evaluation. Your family claims you sold your house impulsively without considering the impact on your daughter. Can you explain your thought process?" I told her everything. The rent demands, the verbal abuse, being locked in my room, the plan to have me declared incompetent. I showed her the recordings I'd made, the text messages, the documented history of their treatment. Dr. Marsh listened carefully, took notes. When I finished, she said, "I'll be submitting my report to the court. I can't tell you what it will say, but I can tell you this: you strike me as a man who made a difficult decision for good reasons. Whether the court agrees, I can't say." 2 weeks before the guardianship hearing, Derek made a catastrophic mistake. Whether it was desperation or stupidity, or both, I'll never know. He was still living in my house, the 30-day eviction notice having been extended because of the pending lawsuit. Derek had been scrambling for money, any money to pay their mounting bills. He staged a break-in, smashed a window, roughed up the place, called the police, and filed an insurance claim for $50,000 in stolen property. Electronics, jewelry, cash, he claimed. But Derek was sloppy. He filed the insurance claim at 10:30 in the morning. The police report documenting the break-in was filed at 2 that afternoon. The timestamps didn't match up. The insurance investigator caught it immediately, started asking questions. Derek's story fell apart under scrutiny. Within 3 days, Derek was arrested for insurance fraud. Patricia called me with the news. "Newton, this is good for us. Really good. It shows Derek's character, shows he's willing to commit crimes for money. It'll help your case." But then she paused. "But there's something else. Something you need to know. Sarah is in the hospital." My heart stopped. What happened? She took some pills. Not enough to kill her, the doctors say. She called 911 right after she took them. It looks like it might have been a gesture, a cry for help, or a manipulation. It's hard to say. Sarah had attempted suicide, or staged an attempt. The distinction didn't matter to the media. Somehow the story got out. "Daughter's suicide attempt after father's betrayal," read the headline in the local paper. Then it spread. Social media picked it up. Facebook, Twitter, local news channels. Sarah gave an interview from her hospital bed, looking pale and tragic. "My father's cruelty drove me to this," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I've lost everything because of his vindictive actions. The house I thought was mine, my home, my security, all because my father wanted to punish me. I couldn't take it anymore." The story went viral. Thousands of shares, tens of thousands of comments, most of them calling me a monster. "Elderly abuser," someone spray-painted on my truck one night. People started protesting outside my apartment building. Not many, maybe a dozen, but enough. They carried signs. "Family destroyer, justice for Sarah." I stopped leaving my apartment except for necessary medical appointments and meetings with Patricia. The guardianship hearing was in 1 week. Patricia was worried now. Newton, the judge, has definitely seen the news coverage. She knows the public story. We need to counter it, and we need to counter it hard. At the hearing, the courtroom was packed. Sarah was there in a wheelchair, completely unnecessary, according to Patricia's investigation, but theatrically effective. Derek couldn't attend because he was awaiting trial for the insurance fraud, but Sarah had brought supporters. Friends from her church, neighbors, people who believed her story. Carl testified first. He talked about how stubborn and cold-hearted I'd always been, how I'd always put myself first, how Martha had complained to him about my emotional distance. All lies. Martha never said any such thing. But Carl said it under oath, and the judge listened. The court evaluator, Dr. Marsh, testified next. Her report was mixed. "Mr. Newton demonstrates full cognitive capacity," she said. "His memory, reasoning, and judgment are all intact." However, the circumstances of his decision to sell the house without informing his daughter with whom he was living demonstrate questionable judgment in family matters. While he is legally competent, his actions have caused significant harm to his family relationships. Then Sarah testified. She was brilliant. I have to give her that. She spoke softly, tearfully, describing how she'd sacrificed everything to care for me after Martha died. How she'd opened her home to me. How I'd turned on her without warning. I asked him to contribute to the household expenses, she said, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Not even a lot of money. Just enough to help with utilities and food. He agreed at first. But then he became paranoid. He started accusing me and Derek of trying to steal from him. He moved his belongings out in secret. He sold the house, his own house, our family home, without telling me. And when I found out, when I begged him to help us, he laughed at me. He told me I deserved to be homeless. I hadn't laughed. I'd never laughed. But the way she told it, I sounded like a cruel, vindictive old man. Then, it was my turn. Patricia had prepared me, but I was exhausted. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, exhausted. I took the stand and tried to tell my story. The rent demands, the abuse, being locked in my room. But I stumbled over my words. My hands shook. I looked old and tired and confused, even though I wasn't confused at all. I was just worn down. Sarah's lawyer, a smooth-talking man named Gregory Phillips, cross-examined me. He asked about dates, times, specific conversations. Some details I remembered clearly. Others I didn't. After 3 years, some things blur together. So you're not sure exactly when this alleged abuse occurred, Phillips asked. It wasn't alleged. It happened. But I don't remember the exact date of every incident. But you expect this court to believe your memory is perfect when you say my client abused you. Yet you can't remember specific dates. Memory doesn't work that way. I remember what happened. The dates are less important than the events. Or perhaps Phillips said your memory isn't as good as you think. Perhaps your judgment isn't as sound as you believe. Perhaps your family is right to be concerned about your capacity. The judge thanked me and said she'd rule within 1 week. Patricia and I left the courthouse together. She put her hand on my arm. Newton, I'm going to be honest with you. It could go either way. The judge seemed skeptical of both sides. I'm sorry. I wish I had better news. I went home that night to my small apartment, sat alone in the dark, looked at a photo of Martha taken on our 40th anniversary. We'd gone to a nice restaurant, dressed up, felt young again for one night. Martha, I whispered to her. Photo? Did I do the right thing? Or am I the monster they say I am? She didn't answer. Of course she didn't. She was gone and I was alone and I was 72 years old and I was tired. So tired. I thought about giving up. About calling Carl and Sarah and telling them they could have whatever they wanted. The money, the victory, everything. Just let me live out whatever days I had left in peace. But then I remembered something Martha told me in her last weeks. We were sitting together in the hospice room. She was so weak, she could barely speak. But she took my hand and said, Newton, promise me something. Promise me you'll never let anyone make you smaller than you are. You're a good man. You're strong. Don't let anyone take that away from you. I'd promised her, and I was going to keep that promise even if it killed me. The judge's ruling came back 7 days later. Patricia called me at 8 in the morning. I could tell from her voice it wasn't good news. Newton, sit down. Saturday. The judge denied the guardianship petition. You remain legally competent and in control of your affairs. I felt relief wash over me. That's good news, isn't it? Yes. But there's more. The judge also issued a strongly worded opinion. She said that while you're legally competent, your actions showed poor judgment and a lack of familial compassion. She encouraged you to seek counseling and attempt reconciliation with your family. It's not legally binding, but it's not good for the pending lawsuit. So I won, but I also lost. That's one way to put it. The lawsuit dragged on. Discovery continued. Depositions, interrogatories, mountains of paperwork. Every week, Patricia needed more money. $10,000 here, $15,000 there. 6 months into the legal battle, I'd spent over $100,000 in legal fees. My savings were at $590,000. The house money was disappearing, eaten up by lawyers fighting a battle I should never have had to fight. My health continued to deteriorate. The stress was constant, unrelenting. I developed insomnia, would lie awake until 3 or 4 in the morning, my mind racing through worst-case scenarios. My blood pressure medication had to be increased twice. I lost more weight, down to 160 pounds on my 6-foot frame. Dr. Morrison, my primary care physician, sat me down after my quarterly checkup. Newton, I'm worried about you. Your body is under tremendous strain. The stress is causing real physical damage. Your heart, your blood pressure, your digestive system. Everything is compromised. If this continues, you're looking at a major health crisis. What am I supposed to do? I asked him. Just let them win. Let them take everything. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you need to find a way to protect your health while you fight this battle. Because if you die, they win anyway. But I didn't know how to do that. How do you reduce stress when your own child is trying to destroy you? When every day brings new legal bills, new accusations, new attacks. Carl continued to call, leaving voicemails about how I was tearing the family apart and how I needed to do the right thing and make this right. He never asked for my side of the story. Never questioned Sarah's version of events. Family loyalty, he called it. Blind loyalty, I called it. Diane tried to stay neutral, but even she started suggesting I should consider settling just to have peace in the family. When I tried to explain what really happened, she'd say things like, "I'm sure there are two sides to every story, and maybe everyone made mistakes." Nobody believed me. Or if they did believe me, they thought I should be the bigger person and give in anyway. Because that's what good fathers do, apparently. They let themselves be abused and bankrupted just to keep the peace. The holidays came. Thanksgiving, then Christmas. I spent them alone in my apartment. No invitations from family, no cards, no calls except from bill collectors and lawyers. I thought about Martha, about the Thanksgivings she'd host the house full of food and laughter and family, about Christmas mornings with Sarah as a little girl, her face lighting up at the presents under the tree. Martha and I had stayed up until midnight assembling. How had we gotten here? How had that little girl who used to hold my hand and call me her hero turned into this stranger who wanted to destroy me? In January, 7 months into the lawsuit, Patricia called with devastating news. "Newton, I need to tell you something." During discovery, my investigator found some emails between Sarah and Derek from about 18 months ago, before any of this started. What kind of emails? Planning emails. They were planning this. They'd consulted with an estate attorney about how to get you declared incompetent. They discussed strategies for building a case that you weren't capable of managing your own affairs. My blood went cold. They were planning to do this all along, even before they started charging me rent. Yes, there's more. Derek wrote in one email, and I'm quoting here, "Once we get conservatorship, we can sell the house and keep everything. The old man won't know what hit him." My God. There's worse, Newton. Sarah had been putting crushed sleeping pills in your evening tea to make you appear confused and forgetful. They filmed you during these episodes, planned to use the videos as evidence of your dementia. I remembered those evenings. The fog in my head. The difficulty concentrating. The moments of confusion that had scared me made me wonder if I really was losing my mind. It hadn't been age. It had been my own daughter poisoning me. "This is proof," I said. "This proves everything. They were planning to steal from me, to institutionalize me, to take everything. We can use this right. We can show the judge." Patricia was silent for a long moment. "Newton, there's a problem." The emails were obtained through Derek's personal email account, the one he shares with Sarah. My investigator. He guessed the password. It wasn't a legal search. It was unauthorized access. So the judge ruled the evidence inadmissible. Fruit of the poisonous tree, it's called. Because it was obtained illegally, we can't use it in court. I'm sorry, Newton. I know how important this evidence is. I felt something break inside me. The proof existed. The smoking gun that would vindicate me, that would show everyone I was telling the truth. And I couldn't use it. "What happens now?" I asked. "We go to trial. Without that evidence, it becomes your word against theirs. Your credibility versus Sarah's tears. Can we win?" Patricia hesitated. "Honestly, I don't know. Juries are unpredictable. Sarah is a sympathetic figure. A daughter who says she was just trying to help her aging father. You're a man who sold a house out from under his own child. The optics aren't great, Newton. Even if you're legally in the right." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying Sarah's lawyer has made a settlement offer. They'll drop the lawsuit if you give them $300,000. $300,000. It's less than half of what they're suing for. And it would end this. No trial, no more legal fees, no more stress. You'd still have over $400,000 left. You could live comfortably on that." I thought about it. $400,000. It would last me the rest of my life, probably. I was 72 in poor health. How many years did I have left? 10, 15, if I was lucky. 300,000 to make this go away. To have peace. To be free of this nightmare. "Let me think about it," I told Patricia. I spent the next week in agony. The trial was scheduled for 2 months away. If I went to trial and lost, I could be on the hook for the full $2 million. I'd lose everything. end up in a nursing home on Medicaid with nothing. But if I settled, I'd be admitting defeat. Admitting that Sarah and Derek could abuse me, steal from me, poison me, and then get paid for it. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The stress was overwhelming. I'd wake up at 3 in the morning with panic attacks, my heart racing, unable to breathe. Dr. Morrison prescribed anti-anxiety medication. It helped a little, but not enough. One night, sitting alone in my apartment, I picked up the photo of Martha, the one from our anniversary. I looked at her, smile, remembered her, laugh, her strength, and I made my decision. I called Patricia the next morning. Tell them no. We're going to trial. I'm not giving them a penny. Newton, are you sure? The risk is enormous. I'm sure. Martha told me never to let anyone make me smaller than I am. I'm done being small. We fight. Okay, Patricia said. Then we fight. But the universe wasn't done with me yet. The week before the trial, I got another call. This time, from Adult Protective Services. Someone had filed a complaint, an anonymous tip, that I was living in unsafe conditions, that I was unable to care for myself properly, that I was in need of immediate intervention. A social worker named Jennifer Tran came to my apartment. She looked around, saw that it was clean and well-maintained. She interviewed me, saw that I was competent and coherent. Mr. Newton, she said, I don't see any evidence of what was reported. You seem to be managing just fine. I'll close this case. Who reported me? I asked. It was anonymous, but based on the specific details they provided about your situation, I'd guess it was a family member. Sarah or Carl. Probably both. One last attempt to make me look incompetent before trial. I felt something inside me harden, something shift. I'd been hurt, betrayed, wounded by what they'd done, but now I was just angry. A cold, clear anger. They wanted a war. They'd get a war. The trial was scheduled for a Monday morning in late March. Patricia and Thomas had prepared me extensively. We'd reviewed every document, practiced my testimony, anticipated every question Sarah's lawyer might ask. But the Friday before the trial, everything changed. Patricia called me at 7 in the morning. Newton, you need to get down to my office right now. Something's happened. Something big. I drove to her office, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. When I got there, Patricia and Thomas were waiting along with a man I didn't recognize. Newton, Patricia said, this is David Chen. He's a private investigator I hired a month ago. David, tell Mr. Newton what you found. David opened a folder and pulled out several photographs. Mr. Newton, I've been following your daughter and her husband for the past 4 weeks. I wanted to see if there was anything we could use to challenge their credibility. And I found something. He spread the photos on the table. They showed the house. My old house. The one Sarah and Derek were supposedly being evicted from. They're not living there anymore, David said. They moved out 6 weeks ago. They're renting a condo in the East Side. A nice place, 2 bedrooms, $1,500 a month. But the eviction, I said. They claimed they were about to be homeless. They were never going to be homeless, Patricia said. They had money. They had options. The whole sob story about losing everything. It was theater. Manipulation. There's more, David continued. I checked Derek's employment records. He got a job 3 months ago. Sales position at a medical supply company. Salary of $70,000 a year. He's been working this whole time, while claiming to the court that he couldn't find employment. They lied, I said. They lied about everything Patricia said. And we can prove it. I've subpoenaed their bank records, Derek's employment records, the lease agreement for their condo. All of it. There's something else, David said. He pulled out another document. This is from the bank. The one you went to with Sarah 3 years ago. I tracked down Helen Rodriguez, the manager you mentioned. She's willing to testify. She kept detailed notes from your meeting. Notes that show Sarah specifically told the notary not to file the deed with the county. She documented it because she thought it was suspicious. Helen never told me she'd documented that, I said. She didn't know it would be relevant. But when my investigator contacted her and explained the situation, she went through her old files, found everything. She's willing to testify about what she witnessed. About how Sarah deliberately prevented the deed transfer while leading you to believe it was complete. Patricia was smiling now. Really smiling. Newton, this changes everything. This isn't just evidence that you're innocent. This is evidence that they've been running a con from the beginning. That they lied to the court, committed perjury, staged a fake eviction crisis. The judge is going to be furious. What about the sleeping pills, I asked. The emails you couldn't use. We still can't use those directly, Thomas said. But with Helen's testimony and the bank records, we can tell the story. We can show the pattern. And the judge might allow us to bring up the emails now since we have independent corroboration of the conspiracy. For the first time in months, I felt hope. But that afternoon, something else happened. Something I didn't see coming. Derek panicked. I don't know how he found out that we'd discovered his employment and their living situation. Maybe someone at his company talked. Maybe his lawyer figured it out. But Derek knew his lies were about to be exposed. And he made a desperate, stupid decision. That Friday evening, Derek broke into my apartment. I was at Patricia's office going over trial preparation. When I got home at 8, I found my front door slightly ajar. The lock had been jimmied open. I called the police, immediately didn't go inside. 2 officers arrived within 10 minutes. We went in together. The place had been ransacked. Drawers pulled open, furniture overturned, papers scattered everywhere. They'd taken my laptop, the one with all my personal files. They'd taken the backup hard drive with my recordings and documentation. They'd taken the folder I'd kept with copies of all the legal documents. But they'd made a mistake. Because my apartment building had security cameras. And those cameras had captured Derek entering the building using a credit card to slip the lock on my door, and leaving 20 minutes later carrying my laptop and a bag of my belongings. The police arrested Derek that night. Breaking and entering. Burglary. Destruction of property. Violation of the restraining order that Sarah had gotten against me, which ironically also restricted Derek from contacting me. Derek's bail was set at $50,000. Sarah couldn't afford it. Derek spent the weekend in jail, and Sarah apparently had a breakdown. On Sunday night, the night before our trial was set to begin, Patricia got a call from Gregory Phillips, Sarah's lawyer. They want to settle, Patricia told me on Monday morning, an hour before we were supposed to be in court. Sarah is dropping the lawsuit entirely. No money. No admission of fault from you. She just wants it over. What changed, I asked. Derek's arrest. The evidence we found. And apparently Sarah had a conversation with her lawyer where he told her very bluntly that she was about to be destroyed in court. That she might face criminal charges herself for perjury. Phillips advised her to take the exit ramp while she still could. So it's over. The lawsuit is over. Derek still faces charges for the insurance fraud and the burglary. But yes, Newton, you won. You're free. I should have felt relief, joy, triumph. But what I felt was exhaustion. I'd won. But what had I won? I'd spent over $120,000 in legal fees. My health was shattered. My family was destroyed. My daughter hated me. Or at least, she'd tried to destroy me. There's one more thing, Patricia said. The judge reviewed all the evidence we would have presented at trial. She's awarding you $72,000 in legal fees. Sarah has to pay them. It won't cover everything you spent, but it's something. Sarah doesn't have $72,000. No, she doesn't. So the judgment will sit there. Maybe she'll pay it someday. Maybe she won't. But you won, Newton. You proved you were right. You proved they lied. Everyone will know the truth. But would they? Would Carl believe me now? Would Diane? Would the people who'd protested outside my apartment? Who'd called me a monster on social media? I didn't know. And I was too tired to care. The weeks after the trial that never happened were strange. I felt like I'd been holding my breath for months, and suddenly I could breathe again. But I'd forgotten how. Sarah tried to contact me once 2 weeks after she dropped the lawsuit. She called from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Dad. Her voice was small. Not the screaming, demanding voice from that morning in the kitchen. Not the calculated, tearful voice from her courtroom testimony. Just small and broken. Hello, Sarah. Can I see you? Please, I need to talk to you. Against Patricia's advice, I agreed. We met at a coffee shop downtown. Neutral territory. Public place. She looked terrible. She'd lost weight. Her hair was unwashed. She had dark circles under her eyes. She looked like I'd felt for the past year. We sat across from each other. She ordered coffee, but didn't drink it. I'm sorry, she said finally. I know that's not enough. I know it doesn't fix anything. But I'm sorry. I waited. Didn't say anything. Derek changed me, she continued. I know that's not an excuse. I made my own choices. But when we started having money problems, when Derek lost his job, when the debt piled up, I panicked. And Derek kept saying, your dad has that house just sitting there. He's old. He doesn't need all that space. We deserve it more than some stranger he'll eventually sell it to. And I started believing him. You could have asked me, I said. You could have talked to me. Explained your situation. I would have helped you, Sarah. I would have given you money if you'd asked honestly. I know. But asking felt like failing. Taking felt like justice. Somehow Derek convinced me that you owed us. That you'd had your life, your success, your happy marriage with Mom, and now it was our turn. We deserved the house because we needed it more than you did. So you tried to steal it? Yes. She was crying now. Real tears, I thought. Yes, we tried to steal it. And we tried to have you declared incompetent so we could take everything. And I drugged you. God, Dad, I drugged my own father to make you seem confused. What kind of person does that? I don't know, Sarah. You tell me. A desperate person. A scared person. A person who lost herself so completely that she couldn't see what she'd become. She looked up at me. Derek and I are getting divorced. He's going to prison for the insurance fraud. 2 years, maybe 3. I've moved into a small apartment. I got a job at a call center. It doesn't pay much, but it's honest work. Good, I said. I know you'll never forgive me. I wouldn't forgive me either. But I needed you to know that I understand what I did. I understand what I lost. I had a father who loved me, who would have done anything for me if I'd just been honest with him. And I threw that away for money I never even got. She stood up to leave. I won't bother you again. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry, and that I'm trying to be a better person. The person you and Mom raised me to be. I watched her walk away. Part of me wanted to call her back, to forgive her, to rebuild something, but I couldn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The wounds were too deep. But I also didn't hate her. She was my daughter. Somewhere inside that woman who'd tried to destroy me was the little girl who used to make me Father's Day cards with crayons and glitter. That little girl was still in there somewhere, buried under bad choices and worse influences. Maybe someday we'd find our way back to each other. But not today. I focused on healing instead. I started going to a therapist, a woman named Dr. Susan Wright, who specialized in family trauma. Twice a week I'd sit in her comfortable office and talk about everything that had happened. She helped me process the betrayal, the anger, the grief. You're grieving multiple losses, she told me. The loss of the relationship you thought you had with Sarah. The loss of your innocence about family. The loss of trust. These are all legitimate griefs, Newton. Let yourself feel them. I did. I cried in her office. Really cried for the first time since Martha died. I cried for the daughter I'd lost. For the years I'd wasted being afraid and small. For the marriage Sarah had destroyed in her own life. For all of it. But I also started living again. I went to the Veterans Center more often. Started attending the weekly support group for Vietnam vets. Found friendship with men who understood trauma, who understood betrayal, who didn't judge. One of those men, a former Marine named Robert Hayes, became a good friend. We'd meet for coffee every Tuesday morning. Talk about the war, about life, about everything we'd lost, and everything we still had. You know what I learned in '67, Robert said one morning. I learned that survival isn't enough. You can survive and still be dead inside. You have to choose to live, really live. How do you do that? I asked him. You do something that matters, something that helps someone else. You turn your pain into purpose. I thought about that. About Martha's last words about never letting anyone make you smaller than you are. I decided to take what was left of my money and do something with it. Something Martha would be proud of. I donated $50,000 to the local homeless shelter. The place where I'd started volunteering after the trial ended. I'd seen men there, veterans mostly, who'd lost everything. Who reminded me that I'd been lucky. I'd had the resources to fight back. They didn't. I set up a scholarship fund at the community college. $25,000 to help older students go back to school. People who were starting over, rebuilding their lives. Like Sarah, I thought. Like what she was trying to do now. And then I did something Martha and I had always dreamed of. I started traveling. In June, 4 months after the lawsuit ended, I flew to Greece. Stood on the beach in Santorini that Martha had always wanted to visit. We'd planned to go for our 50th anniversary, but the cancer came first. I stood there, my feet in the Mediterranean, and I talked to her. Told her about everything that had happened. About Sarah and Derek. About the trial, about winning and losing at the same time. I kept my promise, Martha, I said to the sunset. I didn't let them make me smaller. I chose myself. I chose dignity. I hope I made you proud. I felt like she was there with me. Like she was smiling. Like she was saying, I always knew you had it in you, Newton. You just needed to remember who you were. Over the next year, I traveled to Ireland, to Italy, to Scotland. Places Martha and I had marked on maps and dreamed about. I took photos at every stop. Not just of the scenery, but of myself. Proof that I was there. Proof that I was living. I joined a Facebook group for older travelers. Posted my photos. Made friends online with other widows and widowers who were doing what I was doing. Choosing life over mere existence. My health improved. The stress gone, my blood pressure stabilized. I lost the extra weight I'd put on from the medications. Started walking every day. Felt stronger. Carl called me in September. Newton, I owe you an apology. A big one. I heard what really happened. About Derek's arrest, about the lies they told about what Sarah did. I was wrong to believe her without hearing your side. I'm sorry. Thank you, I said. Can we start over? Can I call you sometimes just to talk? I'd like that. Diane called a week later with a similar apology. Family slowly starting to rebuild. Not the same as before. It would never be the same. But something new. Something more honest. I'm 73 now. It's been 18 months since that morning when Sarah screamed at me in my kitchen. Since I made the decision to stand up for myself. Was it worth it? The pain, the stress, the money, the family drama? I think about that question a lot. And here's what I've learned. For most of my life, I defined myself by my relationships. I was Martha's husband, Sarah's father, Carl's brother, a good man, a good soldier, a good worker. I did what was expected. I made others happy. I made myself small and quiet and convenient. After Martha died, I became even smaller. I let Sarah and Derek walk all over me because I thought that's what family meant. That love meant accepting abuse. That being a good father meant sacrificing my dignity. But Martha's last words changed everything. Never let anyone make you smaller than you are. I realized that love and respect go together. That family doesn't give anyone the right to abuse you. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is let them face the consequences of their choices. Sarah needed to learn that you can't manipulate and lie and steal and expect no consequences. Derek needed to learn that crime doesn't pay. They both needed to learn that other people, even elderly fathers, have value and dignity and rights. By standing up for myself, by refusing to be small, I taught them that lesson. Maybe they learned it, maybe they didn't, but I learned something more important. I learned that I matter, that my life, my dignity, my peace matter, that at 73 years old I deserve to be happy. I deserve to be free. I sold that house and bought my freedom. Best investment I ever made. Yesterday I got an email from Sarah. Just a few lines. Dad, I got a promotion at work. I'm managing a team now. I'm doing okay. I hope you're doing okay too. Maybe someday we can talk again. Really talk. Love, Sarah. I read it 3 times. Then I wrote back. Sarah, I'm proud of you for rebuilding your life. I'm traveling, volunteering, living well. I think about you often. Maybe someday. Take care of yourself. Maybe someday isn't today. But it's not never either. And that's enough for now. I'm sitting on my balcony right now, looking at the sunset, drinking coffee the way I like it, as strong or as weak as I want. No one tells me how to drink it. No one demands rent from me. No one makes me feel like I'm taking up too much space. I'm free. Finally, completely free. And I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and your own dignity? Have you ever had to stand up to someone you love because they were hurting you? It's one of the hardest choices a person can make. I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. If this story touched you, if it made you think about your own relationships and boundaries, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about real people facing real challenges. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. Someone who's struggling with a difficult family situation. Someone who needs permission to choose themselves. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for taking this journey with me. I hope wherever you are, whatever you're facing, you remember that you matter. Your dignity matters. Your peace matters. Don't let anyone make you smaller than you are. Take care of yourselves out there. Choose life, choose freedom, choose yourself. And remember, it's never too late to start living.